Senator Ted Cruz, who's joining me from the campaign trail. How are you?
My friend, how you doing?
I am doing well. So, congratulations. Made it on the big debate stage.
Well, I am looking forward to the debate Thursday night, and I think we have been engaged in this debate for a long time, which is the right direction for the Republican Party to go, for conservatives to go. As you know, there are always under the mushy middle. And every time we listen to those Washington voices, every time we run as Democrat-light, we lose. I am convinced that 2016 is going to be an election just like 1980, and that we're going to win by following Reagan's admonition that we paint in bold colors and not pale pastels.
Well, I want to ask you about that because you're going to be on stage with a lot of guys, particularly on the ends, who they tend to have dropped the idea. It seems like a lot of the Republicans, not just some of the guys you're running against, but leadership in Washington, have decided the problem with government is Democrats in charge of it and not government itself.
Well, that's exactly right, and there are a lot of folks that think what we need is more Republicans who'll capitulate, who'll go along to get along with the Barack Obamas and the Harry Reids and Nancy Pelosi's of the world. I don't think that's the right direction for us to go. We need to stand for our principles, and just once, Eric, Republicans should nominate someone who is as committed to conservative principles as Barack Obama is to liberal principles.
Amen to that. You have been talking a lot about the Washington Cartel, and people have used phrases like crony capitalists and others, and I think it's a message. I mean, when you look at the Planned Parenthood fight, it's another example of this Washington Cartel perpetuating itself, and just wanted to let you explain to people what you mean by the phrase.
Sure. Well, as you know, I have a new book that just came out a couple of weeks ago called A Time for Truth, and one of the core things in the book, A Time for Truth, is that I describe the Washington Cartel and how it operates. Now, what is the Washington Cartel? That's the term I use for corruption in both parties who get in bed with lobbyists and special interests and grow and grow and grow government. And as conservatives, and listen, for me, I'm a Christian first, I'm a conservative second, and I'm a Republican third. As conservatives, we keep winning elections, and then the people we elect don't stand and fight for our principles. And we're so frustrated. You look at this Republican House, this Republican Senate, and you ask, what have they done for conservative values? And the sad reality is that you see essentially the McConnell-Reed leadership team, where they're both representing the party of Washington, the party of growing Washington. Just a week ago, I had a battle with my own party's leader, Mitch McConnell, on the Senate floor. The party of Washington wanted to reauthorize the Export-Import Bank, a classic example of corporate welfare and cronyism, where hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer loan guarantees go to a handful of giant corporations. Now, if we're going to stand for basic free market principles, we got to stop the Washington game of picking winners and losers. And, you know, when I stood on the Senate floor and opposed this corporate welfare, there was just one senator who stood with me, Senator Mike Lee, who stood by my side. The leadership of my party came after us. They didn't want to do it. They wanted to grow government. But there's also value, as you know, Eric, and you spoke out loudly on this. Because we stood up against the Washington Cartel, we shined a light on the unwillingness of Republican leadership to follow the conservative principles we campaigned on. We were able to kill the Export-Import Bank. It has expired and not been reauthorized. At the exact same time, our own leadership, Republican leadership, blocked my amendment and Mike Lee's amendment to defund Planned Parenthood in a vehicle where it actually could have done something, because they didn't want to rock the boat. And I think people are fed up with politicians who just go to Washington to perpetuate the status quo. We need a consistent conservative who has demonstrated he'll stand up to the Washington Cartel and defend the Constitution.
I agree. Senator, I got to put you on hold here real quick while I go check some traffic. I'll be right back to you. Doug Turnbull, I want to ask you a question, and I don't want to put you in somewhat of an awkward position here, but it seems like when you and Senator Lee flip on the light and shine the light on these guys, the difference between roaches and these guys is the roaches scatter, and the guys in Washington put on a suit and say, I'm a Republican, I believe in limited government. They just don't want to fight for it.
Right. Well, listen, you're right. We have the fundamental political divide we have in this country. It's not between Republicans and Democrats. Politicians in Washington, in both parties, and the American people. And I'll tell you, one of the big questions, I think, Thursday night in the presidential debate is going to be which candidates on that stage are campaign conservatives, talk a good game on the campaign trail, versus being a consistent conservative, having stood and fought. And I think every Republican primary voter is going to ask, don't tell me just when you stood up and fought the Democrats, everyone can say they oppose Barack Obama. When have you stood up to your own party? When have you stood up to Republican leadership and the Washington Cartel? And when have you stood with the American people? And I think that's one of the sharpest divides. Frankly, Eric, I think it's why we're seeing so much incredible enthusiasm for our presidential campaign. You know, we've had over 175,000 contributions at tedcruz.org. The average contribution is $81. People at all 50 states going to tedcruz.org, volunteering, signing up to contribute, because people are fed up and they want a consistent conservative who they can trust to stand with them every time, and that is what I have endeavored to do every day I've been in public office.
You talk about your fundraising numbers. They've been really impressive for you individually, not just hiding behind a super PAC. When you look at a lot of the other candidates, they're really having to use super PAC dollars to get their name up there, and the number of contributions you've gotten below $100 really has been significant compared to some of the people who may be holding steady high in the polls, but they're getting mega millionaire contributions and not from actual blue-collar and middle-income Americans.
Eric, you're exactly right. One of the most astonishing developments of the last several weeks is that every campaign filed their fundraising reports. And out of 17 Republican candidates for president, do you know which campaign raised the most hard money, the most money actually for the campaign? Ours did. $18.3 million in just over 3 months. Second place was Jeb Bush at $11.4 million. Now, if I'd have gone on your radio show 4 months ago and said, Eric, we're going to outraise the entire Republican field, including outraising Jeb Bush by $3 million, you'd have said, Cruz, you are bark at the moon, crazy out of your mind. That ain't going to happen. And the reason it happened is because courageous conservatives across this country, they're fed up with Washington, and they're looking for someone who will tell them the truth and do what he said he would do. You know, I'll give you an amazing statistic that is generating the record fundraising and the enthusiasm we're seeing. We have donors in roughly 50% of the zip codes in America. 48.1% of zip codes in America have one or more Cruz campaign donors who've gone to tedcruz.org. That is what's fueling the campaign. And I'll tell you why that gives me so much hope and optimism. The last time we had a campaign and a candidate who took on the Washington Cartel and failed was 1980 with Ronald Reagan and the Reagan Revolution. Mm-hmm. And then as now, it came from the people. It came from hundreds of thousands and millions of courageous conservatives who said, we need a leader who will honor his commitment. I see the same thing happening today that happened in 1980.
Last question for you. You're going to be on the debate stage on Thursday night. You'll be at Red State on Saturday. This Thursday night, is there any one particular candidate you really think you want to or feel the need to go toe-to-toe with and compare and contrast your record with?
Well, no. You know, there are going to be 10 candidates there. Everyone's going to have a different objective. I think there will be some candidates there who come to the stage looking to tear down other candidates. That is not going to be my approach. My approach has consistently been to take the high road, to follow Reagan's 11th commandment. So I do not intend to speak ill of, to impugn the character or integrity of any of the Republican candidates. I think it is an incredible testament to strength that we have such a rich and diverse field of young, dynamic conservatives. I think that's a terrific sign. It contrasts powerfully to the Democratic side, where the Democratic field almost feels like a rerun of that TV show, that 70s show. I mean, it is not a young, vibrant, agenda team.
It's also very white.
I will say this. A lot of people with a whole lot of money who want to preserve the status quo and grow government, and their record isn't working for those who are struggling. But I do want to make clear one thing, because the media in Washington likes to play a game. When you follow Reagan's 11th commandment, it means you don't go smack people. So when you see all the Republicans smacking Donald Trump with a stick and attacking him personally, I've very consciously and deliberately not done that, and in fact gone out of my way to defend Donald. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you never disagree on policy. I will happily and readily disagree with other candidates in this race on amnesty, on Common Core, on defunding Planned Parenthood, on stopping Obamacare, on our debt. Want and deserve substantive, policy-based, record-based debates and political discussion, and that's what I hope Thursday's debate will focus on.
Great. Senator Ted Cruz, out of time here. I appreciate you stopping by. Good luck Thursday night. Can't wait to see you on Saturday.
Thank you, Eric. God bless, and I'll see you at Red State. And by the way, we're doing a bus tour starting on Friday. Go to tedcruz.org. You can see all the states we're going throughout the South, the SEC. So come join us on the bus tour.
Excellent. All right. Take care, Senator.